Have you ever wondered what Maker's Mark Private Selects taste like before they get the stave finishing? Well, I brought a sample home to find out. Yes, this right here is the exact same barrel of whiskey. This is before it got its stave finishing. And this is the stave profile that I selected for Mass Bourbon Alliance and my partner retail store, Liquor Junction. We went with 1 Baked American, 2 Seared French Cuvée, 4 Maker's Mark 46, I love Maker's Mark 46, 2 Roasted French Mendiant, and 1 Toasted French Spice. A very even bell curve, if you will. And you can see exact same proof on the two, 109.2, 109.2 at bottling. I thought this was pretty cool that they sent me home with a sample pre-stave. This is cast strength Maker's Mark, coming from barrel 7602. Now, if you know Maker's Mark, you'll know that their story is one of consistency. They rotate their barrels in their rickhouse to try to establish a very consistent flavor profile. Anybody that knows Kentucky whiskey knows that single barrels have variation. Where some other distilleries embrace that variability, Maker's Mark chooses to shoot for consistency, typically blending in massive quantities in large vatting tanks to achieve a consistent flavor profile. You know when you're going to order a Maker's Mark at a hotel bar or at your local favorite restaurant, it's always going to taste the same. Some people seek out consistency. Some people seek out variation. The middle ground to that logic is Maker's Mark Private Selections. They set you up with all of their different stave profiles. These are pieces of wood that have a very specific seasoning to them. They have a very specific flavor that they can then impart on some extra aging in that whiskey. Maker's Mark has a very specific recipe for this extra aging. They specify exactly 9 weeks of extra time with those staves in the barrel. It's a really cool setup. They actually take the head off the barrel and insert a cluster of these staves on a ring. I watched them go in. Super cool process at the distillery. It was just incredible to watch. And then they seal that barrel back up and let it continue to mature with those new stave finished extra flavors being imbued into the whiskey. And so what people don't usually get to do is taste their single barrel that they selected without the stave finish. So I've got the inside scoop for you. Let's see how it is. Ooh, yeah, nose is very classic Kentucky bourbon. I mean, oodles of caramel jumping out of that glass. We had the chance to try the base single barrel before we did our stave finishing and our blending process. And I thought this particular barrel had a lot of berries on it. And so you can see part of what we tried to do with this blend is lean into the profile that was already there. Shoot for something very berry forward. And so that is why we selected the staves that were selected. We thought that they were going to improve those berry flavors and really just take it to the next level, let it blast off from its base landing pad. This is the landing pad whiskey, I guess. Oh yeah, nosing further, little nice black pepper going on in there. If you've ever made a Christmas cake, it's kind of got a good aroma there too. Lovely dark chocolate tones, some black forest cake, deep raspberry. It's got a very velvety nose to it. That's an awesome whiskey. All right, on to the taste. Wow. The way that coats the mouth. Maker's Mark has been very known for their very sweet, very approachable, wheated bourbon mash bill. This kicks things up a notch. This is not your shelfer Maker's Mark. And I can't believe I've held onto this sample this long. And here I am sipping it now. But yeah, second sip is even better. Elevates some dulce de leche sweetness. A little bananas fosta. So how would I describe the Maker's Mark cast strength unfinished in the staves? Very easy, very drinkable, very on profile for Maker's Mark. I do think that they nail a barrel-to-barrel consistency that most other distilleries do not. And so that justifies the existence of the stave finishing. It absolutely validates the decision to do something like this so that individual groups or retailers or whiskey clubs can arrive at something very personal, very their own. Especially if you get to go and visit their Kentucky farm. It is gorgeous there. They do everything on premise. We had a spectacular time touring the grounds, sticking our noses in barrels we probably shouldn't have, and coming away with Berry Blast. So this wouldn't be a proper comparison if we didn't get into this too. Of course, poured up in the Mass Bourbon Alliance Glen. How did that stave finishing change this whiskey? Let's find out. Ooh, on the nose it's picked up much more arts and crafts, funky complexities. I get a really nice kind of maple candy, a lot more of the dark chocolate, and just oodles of dried fruit. Every berry you can imagine. Dehydrate it, make it into this crunchy little snack for me, and I'm finding it in this glass. Definitely a little more oak influence, which makes sense. They stuck more oak staves into this thing, increased their surface area to volume ratio, and got a ton more wood extraction in 9 weeks of aging in that elevated wood interaction environment. Kind of smells like a summer night and you're by the ocean. The air is cool and crisp. There's this steady, one-directional breeze just constantly blowing over you, and you're nearby something sweet. Maybe it's a lover's perfume. Maybe it's a raspberry chocolate bar you have stashed in your passenger seat. I don't know. That's where my mind's at when I nose this glass. But I'd say it's sound taste. Wow. Hands down, even better than the nose. The palate is significantly elevated by the stave finishing, I would guess. It's the only thing difference between these two samples. That is so much more creamy, sweet. It's got this bubbliness to it on the back end where cherry cordial, little amaretto, raspberry tart just dances across the tongue. All of those beautiful berry tones. Which I would hope for living up to this label, huh? Would you look at the legs on that? That is bonkers. That's a couple minutes after I took a sip. I love the finish too. It's got this molasses caramel, just linger for days. That's where I think more of the classic Maker's Mark is still there. So if you like the regular shelfer Maker's Mark, definitely go for this, because you're going to have a much more elevated experience with a curated private selection than you would the bottle that everybody else is drinking. So if you value individuality, go for a Maker's Mark private selection. Search for a stave finish or a group or a store that you really like to support. Make sure you shop there. Get their pick. They're not going to steer you wrong. So final thoughts as I have both these glasses still in front of me. The pick is definitely elevated by the stave finishing experience. All of those Maker's Mark 46, maybe that Frenchman Diet. I'm getting like a tiramisu aroma out of the Private Select. And on the unfinished whiskey, just a very nice, light, balanced, easy bourbon. And if I had not had 10,000 whiskeys in my lifetime, I might be satisfied by this. But for my palate, I'm going with the more complex, fun, finished Berry Blast Maker's Mark Private Select. Let me know down in the comments, have you ever tried unfinished Maker's Mark cast strength? I'm sure there's other examples that I just can't think of off the top of my head, but from the Private Select single barrel experience, I think there's nothing else quite like side-by-siding the barrel that you selected and the barrel after it got 9 weeks of aging with fantastic staves in Kentucky. Are there questions you still have that I have not answered for you? Let me know down in the comments. I love nerding out on this stuff. Let's talk whiskey. Anytime, anywhere. But that is all I have for you today, my friends. Until next time, keep it amongst the whiskey.